Welcome back to another episode of The Quest for Self. I'm your host, Allie. Have you ever found yourself staying in something you knew was slowly breaking you? Not because you didn't see the red flags, but because deep down, a part of you hoped maybe that this time things would be different. Lately, I've been reflecting on this question. A close friend of mine is going through something that's been really hard to watch. It's brought up so many thoughts, memories, and emotions, even my own past situations. This episode is for every person who has ever stayed in a relationship, a situationship, or even just a connection that deep down they knew was hurting them more than helping. So let's talk about it. The cost of wanting to be wanted. Even the strongest, most independent women I know, the ones who have their lives together, fall into this trap. Maybe it's a relationship that's lasted far too long. Maybe it's someone who only reaches out when they want something. Maybe you're constantly adjusting to their terms, when to see them, how to communicate, what you're allowed to ask. I remember adjusting everything around his schedule, waiting for a last minute "are you free" text, hoping this time it would lead to something more. So, why do we stay in these spaces when they're clearly hurting us? In many cases, it's not because we don't see the red flags. It's because we don't believe we deserve better. We cling to the potential of a person. We confuse attention with love. We hope maybe we'll be the one they'll change for. Let's dive a little bit deeper and focus on the emotional and psychological layers of this. That push and pull, hot and cold behavior, well, frankly, it's addictive. One moment, they're all in, and the next, they disappear. That inconsistency wires your brain to chase the high of connection. It makes it hard to walk away. Self-worth and self-abandonment. Well, sometimes we want to be chosen so badly that we abandon ourselves. A friend of mine recently asked a guy to be exclusive. He said no, and she stayed. She stayed in the hope that he'd eventually change his mind, that he'd wake up and realize what she's worth. But every time she stays, she's betraying herself a little more. Fantasy versus reality. We get attached to the idea of someone. Maybe he has a great job. Maybe he loves dogs. Maybe he seems kind. But are these traits showing up consistently? I've done this too. I went on a date and thought, this guy checks off so many boxes. But a few weeks later, there were no real plans, no real effort. I had to ask myself, am I clinging to potential or am I living in the actual reality? And then we have fear of loneliness. We don't like to sit with ourselves. Being alone can feel scarier than being mistreated. But I promise you, getting to know yourself, spending time with yourself, learning to love your own company, that's where the healing happens. That's where strength is built. And lastly, we have cognitive dissonance. When your mind knows the truth, but your heart refuses to accept it. My friend knows this guy has disrespected her deeply, and yet she stays. She's emotionally rejecting what she already intellectually knows. And honestly, it's so painful to witness. So let's dive deeper into the story, my friend's situation. She met this guy from day one. He said he didn't want anything serious. Well, she stayed anyway. She traveled with him, slept with him, gave her time, her energy, her emotions. He never claimed her. She hoped he would change. He didn't. I'd see her light up when he gave her the tiniest crumbs of attention. And then I'd see her spiral when he disappeared for days or didn't show up for her emotionally, simply because there was never a commitment on his end. I wanted to shake her and say, he's not confused. He's just not choosing you. But I didn't, because I've been that girl too. And I know how hard it is to let go when your heart is holding on to hope. And watching someone you love get breadcrumbed, disrespected, and kept on a leash like that, it's honestly heartbreaking. What makes it harder? Well, she thinks she's in control. She says she could walk away at any time, but she doesn't. She's lost her emotional peace. And she's not alone. So many of us have been there. So what keeps us there? Well, sometimes we tell ourselves, well, at least I'm getting X out of it. But deep down, we don't just want X. We want the whole damn alphabet. And we should, because we're worthy of all of it. But when you constantly shrink yourself to stay in someone's life, you're not being loved. You're being tolerated. And if you're listening to this and thinking, that's me, take a deep breath. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're human. And now it's time to talk about what staying really costs us. So, what's the cost of staying in a situation where you aren't truly seen or valued? Well, your self-worth, your mental health, your time and energy, your emotional peace. The longer you stay, the deeper the wound. The more it chips away at your ability to believe in the love you actually deserve. So how can we break this habit? Well, it starts by choosing yourself. What does it look like to choose yourself? Well, first, get clear. What do you want? Are you looking for something casual, something serious, something in between? Because once you know what you want, you'll stop entertaining people who don't align with that. Even if the texts feel good, even if the attention is comforting, even if you're a little bored and lonely on a Friday night, you'll still choose you. You'll walk away when it doesn't feel right. You'll stop waiting for someone to realize your value. You'll stop settling for potential. So try a couple of things that have really worked for me. Number one, journal. Am I feeling fulfilled in this connection? What is it bringing to the table that's uplifting my life? Ask yourself, would I let someone I love accept this? Red flag to watch for, inconsistency. If you never know where you stand, well, that's your answer. Let's wrap this up. And here's my message to you. If this episode resonated with you, please know this. Choosing yourself is never the wrong decision. So if your heart is tired, if you're constantly questioning your worth, if you're always doing mental gymnastics just to feel secure, well, that's not love. That's survival mode. And you deserve so much more than that. You deserve peace. You deserve certainty. You deserve real love. Because you don't need to be chosen to be worthy. You already are, and the right person will never need convincing. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Quest for Self. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, like, follow, subscribe, comment, and share. It would mean the world. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media, The Quest for Self.